What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast with me, Trevor, and Kyle. We're back on nostalgia. It feels good to be back on nostalgia.
It's like 2 in a row. Well, if you don't count the interviews, but it's like 2 in a row. So
yeah. I mean, I feel like we took a little bit of a break. We did a lot of locals, which it was a ton of fun. Like, we're still going to do that. There's still a lot of bands to be talked about. But it feels fun just to go full nostalgia, reminisce about bands that we've listened to for 20 years. It's great. So,
but that's what, I don't know. That's what's fun about the music that we're into is there's just an infinite amount, right?
oh, for sure. I mean, that's music in general, right?
Like
Doesn't
whether these
necessarily have to
people,
be ours.
whether the listeners want it or not, we could do this for years.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can continue to talk about our 3 listeners, but we don't have to do that. So, anyways, what's up, man? How's last week been?
Dude, not bad. It's been all right.
Yeah. Well, good.
Right.
So, last episode, Daniel from Die Young. That was freaking dope.
It was sick. We always joke about it, and I think we've joked about it before, but there's a few people that have talked to us that it's like, you guys have no right like talking to us. Like, we're a bunch of idiots, you know. You're way too cool for us.
Kind of other way around. We have no right talking to you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So, I mean, that honestly applies to everyone. Like, I don't know why anyone would want to talk to us, but we're grateful 100%. For it. And we've had really cool conversations. And if you guys have not listened to the Die Young episode, go listen to it because there's some great stories in there. I mean, I had no idea that band had done as much as they did, you know, like shame on me. So,
right. No, freaking crazy to be kicked out and banned from Canada twice.
Yeah.
It's a feat in and of itself kind of thing. So, no, really appreciate Daniel hopping on with us. That was really cool. Super excited for the new Die Young album. We've had a little bit of a sneak preview in addition to the single that's been released, and it's awesome. It's super stoked for it.
Incredible. And he talked a lot about, you know, if he was going to write music and stuff, that it was going to mean something. And man, you fully get that in this album. Like it's just straight solid hardcore, and it's needed right now. You know, we don't need any of this fluff, any of this crap. We just need in your face, good, fast, heavy hardcore. So
right. Get that little Texas edge, that little thrash in there.
Yeah.
So
for sure. So
yeah. Well, dude, what about new music? Has anything come? I haven't been paying attention. I feel really bad about that.
I know. I've been like really swamped with just like work and family stuff, so I haven't paid as much attention to new music. But I did hop on like social media today and saw that Combust from
sick.
New York released 2 songs, I want to say, and they went a little different direction than what they normally do. Like their last full length. It's a lot thrashier. It's like Mind Force, but a little heavier. Maybe heavier is not. It's a little drop tuned, right? It's a little tuned down, Mind Force, and it's sick. Like I'm a huge fan of the sound, so definitely go check that out because it's real good. I think they're a cool band. They haven't made it down here yet, but at least I don't think so. But I'd love to see them because they seem like they're a ton of fun live and their music slays. So. And we're back. So Trevor's like spazzed out, and I'm pretty sure he just like tortured my brain. So
let's see if it does it to everyone. Maybe we'll just like ruin everyone's ears.
Maybe I'll leave it in. I'm gonna at least leave my facial reaction. Did you not see me like spaz out? Dude, you freaking kill my brain. It's like have you seen the TV show Chuck?
Yeah.
When he puts on the glasses, that's what I felt like was happening to me. You know?
Oh, I gotcha. Well, my bad. I mean, would it really be a good episode if I didn't have some sort of technical difficulties at some point in time?
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah. Anyways,
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know what you were saying because I don't even know where I am right now because my brain is so scrambled. So
I honestly don't know where we were at. I was just saying, um, if you have new music, send it my way because I haven't had the time to like keep track of stuff. And then I was saying that Silverstein is here, I think tonight or
cool.
something. But yeah, it might have been
Nice.
last night. I don't know. I'm going to, when this comes out, it'll have been last week, but the Handguns and Man Overboard show tomorrow with Johnny Baseball opening that. I know we've already talked about it, but I'm going to be there tomorrow, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that should be cool.
Do you have something this weekend, don't you?
No, I was gonna go to Life Cycles next week.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. It's like a work night, and it's all the way up in Denton, which is like an hour and a half one way drive for me. So
Just go, bro.
I
Just
don't
do
know.
it.
We'll see. We'll see. I'll
Well,
try to.
sick. Anything else? Any new tours? Anything like that? Anything you've seen music related?
No.
What about just
Still,
some
I'm still trying to
crazy?
recover. I'm still trying to recover from the Luca stuff. So
Okay, there's something to talk about. We're not a sports podcast by any means, but the NBA is getting crazy right now. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Did
Like
Have you
Luca
seen
to
some of the stuff
LA.
from Luca? There was someone here that bought a blue casket and
Yeah.
walked it down to the
Yeah.
American Airlines Center and left it there.
I saw that.
That's crazy, dude. I just
Oh man.
I just want one team to work out. Like I was a Jazz fan like my entire life. But it's hard being a Jazz fan. So I was like, all right, like I'll cheer for the Mavs. Like, I live here, why not? Like I'll cheer for the Mavs. Thought it was good with Luca, and then they just stomped on all of us. So
I have a conspiracy theory that this was all planned by the NBA overall to have a star in LA.
So there's a lot of people saying that the people that Mark Cuban sold the team to are like they own like the Sands casinos in Vegas,
Yeah.
and I guess Mark sold it to him because he wanted them to try and get sports gambling legalized in Texas.
Oh, interesting.
But the Texas legislators came out recently and said no, like we're doubling down, no gambling in Texas. So there's a bunch of conspiracies that they're trying to tank the team, get all the fans to hate them, and then they can use that as leverage with the NBA to move the Mavs to Vegas.
I heard a rumor about that too.
So,
I think it's more likely that they'll just add another team in Vegas than move a team to Vegas.
I don't know. I don't know. The
So,
NBA's been weird about expanding.
yeah,
So
it's true. But anyways, back to the non-sports talk. Um, but well, before we jump off that, Jimmy Butler just got traded to Golden State.
yeah, I
You
saw
see
that.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, man, like sports have always been ingrained in music too, right? Like how
Sure.
many hockey go watch those old school hockey movies and they've all got like punk and hardcore bands in it, So
Sure. Yeah. I mean, go watch Brink.
Dude,
Go watch.
I worked with a guy that was in Brink.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was he
was
one
a
of the
big-
shredders?
Yeah, he was like he was showing us like he would show videos all the time of him doing like backflips on rollerblades and stuff. It's like,
Nice.
I know you think you're cool, but like nobody likes rollerbladers.
There's that dude. You've seen that viral video of the dude who's like overweight with his shirt off. He just launches backflips on his skates.
No,
That
but
dude's awesome. Oh, I'll send it
sick.
to you.
Okay.
It's way
Good for
dope.
those people, man. I can barely even go down the road on a skateboard or anything. So
For real though. Anyways, well, I've got nothing else beyond sports and that
I
stuff
don't
right
either.
now.
The world's
Sweet.
in a weird spot. It's kind of hard. So
Yeah. Yeah. But well, let's dive into it then. Ghost Inside.
yeah.
This has been requested by several people. And are we just going to say it? We took a little bit of flack last episode from My Chill, My Bride because we were fairly negative for several of their albums,
Yeah.
right? And it's one of those things where it's like Unbreakable was such a good album, something that we listen to so consistently that you just want bands to at least continue at a similar level,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
I can appreciate My Chill My Bride stuff now. It's not something I'm a huge fan of, but it's listenable. The Ghost Inside, on the other hand, and you, I believe, disagree with me, but the Ghost Inside is actually a band that I like the majority of their stuff, the majority of their albums, everything like that. This last album, it's a little rough for me.
Mm-hmm.
In all fairness, like the last one specifically, it's pretty rough for me. But like uh that 2020 album, their comeback album, I think is fantastic. And I was super emotional listening to it. I got super emotional watching their comeback video in LA, like all of
Yeah.
that stuff. Like, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this band. And it it feels like a good band to talk about after last episode.
I I think it is a good band to talk about. If people came to this episode expecting me to be super positive on this music, I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint you. Right? I will. I feel like though when we do have these negative takes around bands that we talk about, we try to not be reactionary or douchey about it. Like they're honest opinions that I feel about this music, and so like not everyone's going to like everything. Um, and we'll get into in a second when we talk about some of these albums why I didn't necessarily like them, but like
Yeah.
my overarching feeling, and this is what I wanted to ask you, and this is what I texted you and Chris about earlier, is like as we've gone back and listened to some of these bands, or as you go back listening to any of these nostalgia bands, do you feel like you have outgrown some of this? And I don't mean that in a pretentious like, oh, I'm better than, like I'm too hard to listen to this music, or like I'm better than this crap. Like that's not what I'm saying. It's just from like a musical taste standpoint, have there been bands that you have felt genuinely just like, I've outgrown this. It's not for me anymore.
So I know what you're saying, and my honest take on it is nostalgia is something very like it's just always there for me. I don't know why. I hold on to stuff for a long time, right? Like you guys talk crap on like Attack Attack. I freaking love Someday Came Suddenly. Like
Yeah.
there's stuff like that it was just like it was a time and a place in my life that I can go back to no matter what, and I will continue to enjoy it. Now, on the flip side of that, like our buddy sent us a band that would have like slotted into 2008 almost perfectly. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to listen to this. Like, I don't care about new bands trying to do the old sound for the most part, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like, it was a time and a place, and the nostalgia factor is what makes the music for me still. Is it the best music ever?
Yeah.
No. Am I listening to other things now? Much different.
Yeah.
My musical taste today is much different than it
Right.
was, but the nostalgia hit is still there for me, if
And
that makes
that's,
sense.
no, it does. And that's where I think I've struggled with some of these bands, like The Ghost Inside, and even like My Children, My Bride, right? Is it's like, I feel like right now in my life, the nostalgia for some of these bands is only going to get me so far where I just genuinely don't like the sound anymore. Like, I feel like like, specifically with My Children, My Bride and The Ghost Inside, they did what they needed to do for me. Like, these were the gateway bands for me that actually got me into hardcore that I'm listening to today. Right.
Okay.
So I look back on them with fondness, but when I go back and listen to it, I struggle with it because it's just boring to me. It doesn't like to me, right? I'm not saying their music sucks. I'm just saying like I kind of struggled to get through these albums because I just didn't enjoy it. I found myself kind of getting bored listening to it. But on the flip side, where I think this is an interesting discussion is going back and listening to bands like AFI, Boy Sets Fire, Poison the Well. Very nostalgic bands for me, but I felt like I haven't outgrown that yet. And I don't know why. Like I can't really explain it. So
Yeah, I I don't know why. I mean, I don't know your life.
That's true. I mean, you kind of do. You've been pretty much involved in my life since most of it.
It's been a long time, but yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying. I think that if I'm just to put like myself in your shoes versus myself in my shoes, kind of thing, you were much more like the nostalgia hit for you is old AFI, old Boy Sets Fire, all that kind of stuff. You got into this stuff and introduced like me to this later on.
Mm,
So my nostalgia hit, my own music and stuff like that that I'm finding and discovering and stuff like that is bands like this. A
okay.
little bit before this, the MySpace era, a lot of that kind of stuff, right? This was my rebellious phase kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As stupid as that sounds, but this was my music. This wasn't anything that my parents listened to. I didn't have anyone but friends showing it to me, anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think that we just timing wise just have a little bit of differences that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I
You
mean,
know?
yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. It'd be people that are listening to this. Like, how do you feel about it? I mean, like the Ghost Inside? I remember very vividly Fury and the Fallen Ones. I remember seeing them live. I remember having a ton of fun. Uh, Never really listened to anything after it till I don't know a few years ago. I went back and was like, oh, I think I'll check out the Ghost Inside again. But I have very fond memories of them. I had their album, I had their shirt. Like, it was a cool band. But I don't know. I don't know. Just going back and listening to it is like, and not to be rude or anything, but it's like I feel like I found better music to me that fills the hole that they were. So
I get that.
I
I
don't know.
get that. So let's jump into it and let's actually talk about the band. So they started in 2004. Originally, they were known as A Dying Dream, released an EP, and then it was called Now or Never, and then quickly signed to Media Scare Records. Once they got over to Media Scare, that's when they re-released that, and then they started on their full length Fury and the Fallen Ones. So Fury and the Fallen Ones drops about 2008. So they're a little bit later than some of the other bands that we're listening to at this time, right? We're already several albums deep into the Haste the Days, to the Devil
Mhm.
Wears Prada, to bands along those lines, right? And then the Ghost Inside comes. And I remember they were more hardcore than what we were, well, at least what I was listening to. I was listening to a lot of deathcore. I was listening to a lot of MySpace metalcore, all that kind of stuff. And I know that the Ghost Inside leans more on the metalcore side of things, but they do have that hardcore flair and that hardcore element to them as well. And it
Okay.
started. Do you agree or not agree?
Yeah, no, I do agree. I do agree. Um, I don't know that a lot of other people agree with this. I was going to ask you, are they a hardcore band?
No, they are a metalcore band.
Yeah.
But very specifically, that Fury and the Fallen Ones album, it was a little bit more hardcore. Returners even picks up the speed a little bit more than that, even. And there's a little bit more of like the hardcore beats to it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're a hardcore band, right? But they had a little bit more of that tendency
Yeah.
than some of the stuff we were listening to.
Yeah. No. And that's why, again, that's why I call it like a gateway band for me. Like them counterparts, Comeback Kid, you know, like
Yeah.
then I start getting into like actual traditional hardcore from this. So what's funny is everyone online, like so here's how someone put it. Somebody put it, people who grew up listening to hardcore, like traditional hardcore, won't like them and won't think they're a hardcore band. People who listen to Rise record bands in their teens and just got into hardcore
There
like the Ghost Inside and think they're a hardcore band. And I'm like,
you go.
this is the most perfect example. And like, I think when we saw them back in like 2008 or 2009, we were probably like, oh yeah, dude, this is a hardcore band.
They
Because
were
all
a
we
hardcore
listened
band.
to, yeah, but they're not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's what's funny about it. So this person like just nailed it on the head, you know.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think part of that was also their stage presence, right? At the time, you had a lot of the guys with the emo haircuts, the long hair, the tight, skinny jeans and stuff. And these guys are coming in camo shorts, t-shirts, baseball caps, like much more what you would expect from a hardcore show kind
Right.
of thing. So a lot of their just presence in themselves related to the hardcore scene much more than to the MySpace era
Right.
metalcore, deathcore that I was listening to at least.
But see,
You know,
this is where a lot of people have problems with them, is because they would market themselves as a hardcore band and they would think or act. And this is what I'm reading. This is not me. This is what
yeah, yeah,
I have read from people, that they played the hardcore card just to get like a following, just to get in, but they never were a hardcore band. Like they tried to use that to leverage themselves. It almost feels like some of these metalcore bands that started out as like real good metalcore bands and then sucked later on. It's like you propped yourself up with a scene that would support you. And now it almost feels like it's gimmicky or you're taking advantage of it. Again, this
yeah.
is what I've read from people. Do you agree with that?
I mean,
Because they never really, I mean, looking through some of their tours, like they never really toured with actual, like this time in 2008, they never really toured with actual to the definition hardcore bands. Like what we saw them with, what, Confide, was it a Bring Me the Horizon show?
it might have been. Yeah. I mean, they were touring with metalcore bands, right? Like here's the Bury Your Dead, It Dies Today, the Ghost Inside tour. Um their
Eyes
current
Slowly
drummer
Dying.
came. Yeah, their current drummer came from For the Fallen Dreams. Like, I even saw something with their guitarist who said, "No, we are a metalcore band." You know what I mean? And then I saw something from the vocalist Jonathan, who's like, "Hardcore's less about the sound and more about the ethos behind it, kind of thing." Because there were old melodic hardcore bands, right? Shy Haludes and things along those lines, who are considered like hardcore, but it's not the traditional hardcore sense.
Okay, but would you put the Ghost Inside with a Shai Hulud? Because I don't know that I would. And
I mean,
this
they
is where,
toured with like Misery Signals and stuff.
yeah, I think Misery Signals. I think the Misery Signals is one of the few bands that I think the hardcore scene gives a pass to.
Mm,
Even even there was drama with like Terror and Scott
yeah,
Vogel
yeah,
calling them
I
out.
know.
You know, and
It
again,
sounds like
I am not advocating for either side of this. This was just when I was doing research on this band. This is the discussion that always came up with them, and so I thought it
yeah,
was interesting. You know,
I do. I think it's an interesting thing. I think you're also going to tour with a lot of your contemporaries. And at that time, metalcore, deathcore, hardcore, those crossover bands are touring together. So they were on a lot of the shows that had a deathcore band, a metalcore band, crossover type of band, and things along those lines. I mean, I don't think they're any different than like Stick to Your Guns or something like that. And I know that Stick to Your Guns is in kind of the similar boat,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But Stick to Your Guns also did get an early pass from,
Well,
I
from
think it
Scott
was
Vogel too.
from Scott Vogel. Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
know what I
Oh,
mean?
and that's what people were saying. That's what I think is funny is it's like, and this is where I mean, people might think we're stupid for talking about this, but I actually think this is an interesting discussion. It might be pointless, but like, how does Scott Vogel calls Stick to Your Guns hardcore, but not the Ghost Inside? Like, what? Because sonically, musically, they've kind of both gone in the same direction, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you listen to a stick like the last EP that Stick to Your Guns had, and it's or the album. I don't know if it's an album or EP. I didn't listen to it because I didn't like it. Same with the Ghost Inside, but I just like the path they took was kind of the same. But was there more involvement with Stick to Your Guns in the hardcore scene where Scott was like, "Yeah, we'll give you a pass because you actually walk the walk," instead of just saying you're a hardcore band, but you were never
Well, I mean, from all
part of it?
accounts and what the vocalist came out and said, Jonathan said, was he actually caused some issues with Terror specifically,
Yeah.
like behind the scenes kind of thing. So as much as Scott's name dropping the Ghost Inside and not calling them a hardcore band, how
You think
much of
that's
it was
just the drama between them?
it was just drama. In my opinion, it was probably drama between bands. Like, because he also said, 2000, I think, so that happens 2012, 2014. They're on Warp Tour together and they have a picture together. They're like, we squashed the beef and everything. And then when they have the bus crash in 2015, Scott comes out because I guess a bunch of people were commenting, oh, I bet Terror's loving this. And Scott's like, no, screw you guys. Like, people died.
Yeah.
Like, we fully support the Ghost Inside. You know what I mean? Like, he kind of like backtracked a
Walk
little
back a little
bit,
bit. Hmm.
and again, if he wants to say it about their music itself, sure. You know what? He probably has a point
Yeah.
that a lot of like young kids who are just getting into this from a metalcore or a deathcore or something is going to be like, the Ghost Inside is such a sick hardcore band. They're probably not going to be
Right.
like hardcore if you go and like listen to true to the definition hardcore band. But what
Right.
is hardcore? You know what I mean? Like, we talk about this. So,
What is hardcore? It's
no.
like what was the president that was talking about porn where he's like, you know it when you see it? That's kind of how I feel about hardcore, you know? Like
There you
you know
go. You
you
know
know
when you
when you
see
hear
it.
it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
listening, so like listening to the first album, Fury and the Fallen Warriors, like that's like softcore for me, like it's right there. The rest of it though, not at all. It turned into pretty standard metalcore. So
I think the Returners has points because they do pick up the speed and everything like that. But we'll get to that as we kind of talk about it. So, Fury and the Fallen Ones drops 2008. I think that this was just a new band on scene for us, and they just exploded hard, especially around us. Like, a lot of people really liked the Ghost Inside. And I think that part of that was also due to it was probably 2008 or 2009 when they rolled through, and Straight Edge had a really bad rap going on right then in Salt Lake. And they were playing the Avalon Theater, and Avalon said, if you're wearing Straight Edge merch, you can't come in. And the Ghost Inside started handing out shirts to kids wearing Straight Edge merch so that they could come into the show. Do you
yeah,
remember that?
I do remember that
Yeah. So I
because
think
I
that
may or may
they
not have had to have a shirt.
I think that they earned a lot of like just a lot of like credibility or a lot of like respect, at least here, for doing something like that to help kids get into the show and things along those lines. And like I said, that was 2008 or 2009, somewhere in there, right? Um, but yeah, let's talk about it. Fury and the Fallen Ones.
Yeah.
What? When do you remember it? Like, I feel like you went to a show and brought this album back.
Yeah, it was this Confide show that we're talking about. That was the
That
first time.
it was that one.
Yeah, that was the first time I heard him, and this is why I loved our friend group because we always showed up for I don't remember who we were there to see, but uh,
Probably Confide.
I'm pretty sure they were the opener. The Ghost Inside was
What year was this?
would have been 2008 or 2009.
I'm trying to find it. Keep talking.
Yeah, no, I remember going to that show. I remember them coming out like you were saying. I felt like I was at like an Amira Case Strain show because they were all wearing windbreakers. And he ran out and he's like, "We're a punk band from California," and then they went right into the first song on the album, "Provoke."
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And we all went and got pretty rowdy for him and stuff. And then you're right, like I think I bought a shirt from Confide, and then I bought the album from The Ghost Inside, and then went home and we probably ripped it and burned it for
Oh, I'm
however long we
sure.
could. But yeah, so
I mean, I was listening to a burned version of this album yesterday.
yeah, it's
So it was probably from
probably mine. It's
that.
like a relic, dude.
Yeah. So it looks like that tour was Confide, Bring Me the Horizon, and Misery Signals. I don't remember Misery Signals
I
being
don't remember
there.
Misery Signals being there either. I don't. Maybe they didn't make the Utah date. I don't know.
Yeah. So, anyways, I also don't remember staying for Bring Me the Horizon. But
No, we wouldn't have because That wasn't the episode when people allegedly, or not the episode, the concert where people allegedly tried to fight him, right?
No,
No,
that was a few years later.
allegedly.
Yeah,
Um,
allegedly.
yeah, we didn't stay for Bring Me the Horizon because I think this was when was Bring Me the Horizon even cool at that point. I never thought they were cool, but then they
I
started
like
going
Bring Me the
crazy.
Horizon. I liked them, but I also
When was their sound change though? It wasn't. It wouldn't have been around this time, right?
no. This was way earlier. This was like Suicide Season.
Mm,
Bring Me the Horizon. So
okay,
yeah, I liked Count Your Blessings. Bring Me the Horizon. I think that's what that album's called with like the aquarium fish tank thing. I don't
sure,
know.
dude. I trust
Anyways,
you.
yeah. Anyways, yeah. I mean, I remember this album vividly. Like we listened to this album a ton,
Yeah, this was like our
and
go-to album. It's like this and Parkway Drive. Honestly, were like
yeah,
on repeat that summer. It's like all we listened
yeah,
to.
exactly. And like once you start like matching those guys up, no one calls Parkway hardcore, right?
Yeah,
And these albums are, they feel like they should go together somewhat.
absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, they're metalcore. So, uh, yeah, I remember going through this album and immediately the thing that you got with these guys was the mosh call outs
Hmm.
from day one,
Yeah.
right? And there was no bigger mosh call out. Well, I mean, there was, but on this album, Faith or Forgiveness, right?
Yeah, or what's the song where he says and grab your gun and follow me?
Uh,
It's not
I
Revolution.
maybe it is, but I still think that this is going to top it, right? This was their music video. This is I'll see you when the sun sets, and that like little guitar in the breakdown, like I feel like in my opinion, the Ghost Inside has a very distinct sound when it comes to their songwriting and their breakdowns. They
Yeah,
have a lot of mosh calls. They have a very like unique way that they do their breakdowns. It's not a unique, but all their songs follow kind of the same pattern.
yeah,
Like when you hear a Ghost Inside song, you're like, oh yeah, like it's a Ghost Inside song kind of
you're
thing. You
right.
know what I mean? And it started here. So like Faith or Forgiveness, that's obviously the number one song on the album. It's incredible.
The
I had
melodic part is just.
oh
I
dude.
mean, for everything that I've said so far about the Ghost Inside, this song is still top tier. You know,
Oh,
it's
100%.
the melodic part. It doesn't get much better than that, honestly.
Well, and dude, I mean like there's so many good songs on here, but Siren Song, that heavy freaking opening breakdown that's just like the low
Yeah,
chugs to then the faster chugging part kind of thing. Dude, just so good. This
and even
album front to back, go
yeah,
for
no,
it.
that's what I'm saying. Front to back, like even there's a lot of albums where it feels like are very front loaded. But
Sure.
listening to like the Lion War and stuff, it's like, dude, this song is still incredible. Like there's
Yeah.
no this album front to back, there's no stopping. Like it's
Right.
all just straight bangers.
Right. Dude, and then ending on Blue and Gold. Blue and Gold, it's another one that's just so good. It ends with kind of that punk beat right at the end there. It's just melodic, it's catchy. It feels a little bit comeback kiddish kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like, and then it just fades out, you know?
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was just a great way to end this album.
I don't think there's very many bands that have done the melodic parts as well as this band has. Like the two-steppable ability to most of these songs is like out of this world, you know.
Yeah.
There's so many good melody like um like two-step parts that a lot of bands I think miss some of it, but like all these songs have enough parts where no matter what you do in a pit, you can do all of it. You know what I mean? Like if you only two-step, every song's got a part. If you swing fists, like there's parts. If you circle pit, there's parts. Like
Yeah.
they really do good at like bringing all of it in. And yeah, I respect that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I saw, like they were saying that they pulled influence from like early Bury Your Dead
Really?
and like On Broken Wings and stuff like that. So like those are like moshcore bands. You know
Right.
what I mean? And I feel like the Ghost Inside is like an accessible version of moshcore.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
You know? So there's always, like you said, there's always something to do. It's always going to be fun, especially that album. Uh, and then 2010 comes around. This is Returners. So
Mhm.
2010, we're graduating from high school. I don't know. I'm in college at this point. I don't know how much funds I have to like go buy albums and stuff. Like, so
Yeah.
it started to get picky and choosy. So I had a burned copy of this album too. But I'll tell you, as much as I listen to Fury and the Fallen Ones, I probably listen to Returners as much, if not more.
Interesting.
I love
Yeah.
Returners. And like, in my opinion, I think it's a step above Fury and the Fallen Ones.
Okay.
Like, I honestly do. Like, it starts off with that walk away from the world. It goes through 7 straight songs that like are just through the roof, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Greater Distance might be the best song they've ever written.
Greater Distance is incredible.
It's dude,
Between the
it's
Lines
so
is
heavy.
incredible. Yeah.
Um, so one of the guys that we were talking to that was telling us to do the Ghost Inside, I made the comment to him that like I don't trust anyone that doesn't like Fury and the Fallen Ones, right? It's a
Yeah.
great album. He came back and he was like, I'm glad you said that, but Returners is their best album.
Yeah.
I mean, you say Returners is your best album. I don't know. My issue is that like where bands like Misery Signals and Shy Halud I think have stuck with me for so long is they never got rid of like the actual rawness of their music. This album is too overproduced for me. Like it's too like the drums are too produced. It doesn't feel as raw as their last album. And that's like my biggest complaint about it.
And I can understand that. Where I think that this one caught me is I feel like the singability on it was a step above Fury and the Fallen Ones.
Hmm.
Where Fury and the Fallen Ones had a couple of those like big mosh call parts and stuff like that. I can sing a ton more of this album. And I don't know if it's a little bit how they recorded his vocals and stuff like that, or if it's just like how he wrote the lyrics and stuff. Like, I listen to songs like Unspoken, I listen to songs like Chrono, The Conflict, and stuff like that. And there's so many parts that I can sing along to that I don't know if I had quite as many as on Fury and the Fallen Ones, which I think is what made this album jump up for me.
Okay. See, I would disagree with that because I think that the singing parts to Fury and the Fallen Ones, I don't mean like clean vocals, I mean the actual
Yeah,
sing
yeah,
along.
yeah.
Like I feel
Parts that
like it's
you
a lot.
know.
Yeah, I feel like I know that stuff a lot better. Like even when there's when he's saying like so grab your gun and follow like all of that stuff I feel like was way more like pronounced in Fury and the Fallen Ones. I think see in my opinion Returners is way more of a moshcore album. Like the breakdowns are way more defined and I
Yeah.
don't think it's as melodic. They added like 808s in it, like there's bass drops in it now in the breakdowns, and like that's sick. In 2010, like that's exactly what people were asking for, right? Like this album gave the people what they wanted, and so I can see why a lot of people say that Returners is their best album.
See, and where you're saying there's not as much melodic, like I just disagree with that. Like you listen to a song like Chrono, it's melodic almost the whole way through until you get to the part where he's like, "You're not getting older, you're just getting old." And it's just like there's like parts like that are just like they're kind of corny, but again, this is like the nostalgia hit for me, right?
Yeah.
It's like the cheesy lines that they throw out, it's just like I love it, right? You know what I mean? And
Look,
I'm
I'm okay with that for the last album and this album. then I think it gets overdone.
And
So
here's the thing, right? Is this is the album that's really setting them up though
I think so.
to explode, right? And as they explode, they start to get later on Warp Tour, they start headlining bigger shows and stuff like that. Their crowd actually starts getting a little bit younger,
Mm,
and the kind of cheesiness and stuff like that is still very relevant,
yeah.
you know? And so I agree with you, right? It starts to do all that stuff. But the song number 7 has Tommy Green on it. And like
Okay.
you listen to it and you're just like, oh yeah, there's Tommy. Like you can hear it. So like there's cool stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
cool features, there's cool hits on it. Um, Chrono is my favorite song on this album. I love
Okay.
Chrono. And I think it is because it's that fast, that melodic, until it gets to the breakdowns and stuff. But what you're saying, what we talked about on Fury and the Fallen ones, where their breakdowns and like their song structure and everything was very pronounced, they stepped that up on this
Mhm.
album. So where like they kind of set a foundation on Fury and the Fallen ones. This was like the solidified foundation of what the Ghost Inside is. And it carries through to their next albums, you know? And
Yeah.
I think
I don't feel like this album is Fury and the Fallen Ones 2.0. I don't feel like that.
no,
So
no, it, it took what people really liked about Fury and the Fallen ones and tried to like really amp that up,
yeah.
in my opinion. But like you said, it's not the same. It's different, but it's like very like you said, the breakdowns hit harder, the melodic parts are a little bit faster and stuff like that. Like everything just feels like a little bit of like a step up.
Right.
Not necessarily like better, just like yeah. Yeah, y'all
Good.
know what I'm saying. So, but
Yeah.
no, I love this album. I'll listen to this one front to back, even like all the way to the end through the cracks is great. Truth and Temper has a hidden song on it. When was the last time you heard like a new album with a hidden song?
Doesn't happen anymore.
Doesn't happen anymore.
No.
So it's just like little things like that. I
People
love
don't
that
do that
crap.
stuff anymore. I do too. I do too.
Best hidden song ever.
I mean, that's a lie, but
No, no, no. I'm asking you.
oh, I thought you were saying this one was
No, no,
the
no.
AFI one.
The AFI, Sing the Sorrow.
Uh
Yeah. Yeah.
huh.
Like there's no question.
There's
This
no
one's
question.
pretty sick though. Truth and Temper has a pretty sick one. So that's 2010. 2012, we
Hold on.
get
This album was this album
yeah,
still on Media Scare? It
yeah,
was.
yep,
It's funny. I was going back and looking through a lot of bands that were on Media Scare. It's bands. So not to like beat a dead horse, but this feels very appropriate for the arguments that people have with this band as well. Because you look at bands like Lionheart or Hundredth, you know, as Blood Runs Black. Like man, they fit very well into.
yeah,
I didn't know. I guess I didn't know much about this record label, but yeah, they fit very well into it. So
yeah. No, it definitely makes sense. Um,
like Volumes is on it. So
yeah,
huh. Sorry. Side note. Tangent.
no, all good. After this one, they move over to Epitaph. So the next album, Get What You Give, that's their first album on Epitaph. This is
Okay.
also around the time that they switched drummers. So they go from his name was Casey Stockbridge, who was on those first two albums, and they bring in Andrew. I don't know how to say his last name. He's the one who lost his leg in the bus crash. Um, he was the main songwriter for the Fallen Dreams
Okay.
prior to coming over to the Ghost Inside, which we've talked about for the Fallen Dreams.
Yeah.
You want to talk about metalcore? They are the epitome of whatever the current metalcore sound is of that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can
So,
listen I can listen to the first album. I can listen to the second album. This is where I'd start getting lost. This is
okay.
where I'm like a couple songs I'm like, all right, it's okay. But then the rest of it I'm just like, yeah, this is where I get into the discussion of like, again, in a non-rude, pretentious way, I feel like I have outgrown this sound. It does not resonate with me anymore.
Okay. So you started off then. Why?
It's just like you said, it just feels like a generic metalcore album, way overproduced, borderline gimmicky with this stuff. I guess it's the fact that it came out in 2012 is probably better, because I feel like if this album had come out today, we wouldn't be surprised either. You know what I mean? But then again,
Yeah.
their newest album still. But what I'm saying is that like this album is what metalcore has evolved to that I specifically don't like. It
Sure.
feels generic. It doesn't feels like they've started to lose their soul, their musical soul a little bit.
Okay. I understand why you're saying that. The only thing I'll disagree with is I actually don't mind the album. I actually think that the album's pretty good. It has some of their biggest hits off of
Yeah.
this. Engine 45, Dark Horse, White Light. I think starting off with This Is What I Know About Sacrifice, like that's a solid opener.
Yeah.
Like I think that it's a solid opener.
This is what was that Parkway album? What's the Parkway album where they it's
Not
not
calling this
Horizon.
Atlas, are you?
This is Atlas to me. Or it could even
This is
be
Atlas to you?
Deep Blue. Yeah. This is where like again, if you ask people what's your favorite Parkway Drive song, nobody's talking about their goated albums. They're talking about Deep Blue or Atlas, right? And this is the same with
A
the
lot
Ghost
of people
Inside.
talk Horizons.
You ask the Ghost Inside, what's your favorite Ghost Inside song? They're probably saying songs from this album. They're completely ignoring the last two. This is
Yeah.
Horizons for me from Parkway. Start to lose
Not
me.
Horizons, Atlas.
Sorry, Atlas.
Don't call this Horizons. Come on,
Horizons are
bro.
good. This is where they start to lose me sonically, but this is where I think mainstream metalcore picks it up. And that's cool, right? If you like that stuff, it's cool. I got no problems with it. It's just it loses me.
Sure. It gets much more moshy, much more push pity and stuff like that at times, but it has heavier breakdowns. It has heavy, heavy stuff. So
Yeah.
this is produced by Jeremy McKinnon of A Day to Remember.
That makes
Um,
sense. Too.
it makes a lot of sense, right? Once you start putting into some of that stuff, because you start to listen to how some of like the breakdowns happen, some of how it hits and everything like that. And you're like, oh yeah, Day to Remember's heavy songs feel like they hit like
Like
this.
the end part for Outlive sounds like
Yeah,
some of the like what's the album after Common Sense with A Day to Remember? Sounds like breakdowns that get written in that album from A Day to Remember,
sure.
They're like sneakily heavy, but I don't know. It's whatever.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. A lot of people have said I hopped on and I just read like album rankings and stuff like that on Reddit and
Yeah.
everything. There are a lot of people who list this as their top album.
Interesting.
They're like, this is their magnum opus. It's the heaviest that they get before really starting to delve into the like clean singing aspects and things along those lines. This is the album that they do start to get more into that clean singing and stuff along those lines. You get a little bit softer songs on there, like White Light and stuff like that.
Engine
That's
45, I
just
think it's got a bunch of cleans.
yeah. So there's definitely some stuff in here. I think it's a good album. This one's their first one to premiere on the Billboard 200. It premiered at 88. So you can see where this is going. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You start to see the same trajectory that the Data Remembers took. Now it's the Ghost Inside. I think the Devil Wears Prada took similar path kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
there's some of these like bands who are big and doing these now bigger venues and stuff like that that they have to pack in, and they put stuff like this out.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. I don't mind overproduced stuff as much as you do. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with it. I prefer less production like these days, but especially at this time, like, I didn't mind it. So I think it's a good album. Like I said, it has some of their best songs in terms of like, well, I mean, what most people consider their
Right.
best songs. Uh, Dark Horse is dope. Engine 45 is dope. But like I said, this is what I know about Sacrifice. I think it's a great way to kick off the album. I think that song means even a little bit more after everything that happened,
Right.
you know? Like, I'm pretty sure this is what they opened with at their comeback show. And like,
Okay.
that's just like such a heavy hit on
Yeah.
like they've sacrificed now
Yeah.
literal limbs. And this is the song you come out with.
Right.
It could only be mayhem for this, you
Yeah.
know. So
I, yeah. I remember listening to this first song and it was like, I was excited, right? Because I was like, oh, this is like a good Ghost Inside. And then I started listening to the rest to it and I'm like, I know this story. I've seen this story before.
yeah,
I
see,
don't mind the album. Look, I don't mind the album. It's not their worst album.
yeah,
It's you can see the direction they're going to, and with every band we've talked about that's done this, we always are just so disappointed at what comes after.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I think that it's pretty decent, but we go on to 2014, Dear Youth. This is the one that lost me.
okay,
I didn't care for Dear Youth as much. It has again some heavy freaking songs. You've got some great mosh call parts. I think it's in the
the
song
Mercy,
Mercy. Yeah. Life hits hard, but I hit harder. Again with the cheese, you know what I mean?
absolutely, yeah,
But think about this. If in 2012 or 2014, we're not 5 years removed from high school, think about like that line if we had been 16 years old. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I. That's why again, this is why I made the comment about me feeling like I've kind of outgrown it. Is you're right, like. If I'm getting into this kind of music, if all I've listened to even today, right? If it's 2025 and all I listen to is like Ghost Key and Spirit Box and they play with the Ghost Inside and the Ghost Inside starts playing stuff from this album or Get What You Give or Returners or any of this, like their older stuff, like this is an incredible gateway into the actual hardcore that we listen to, right?
Sure.
So like someone's got to do it. Like it's fine. Again, I just don't relate to it right now. But if I'm 16 years old getting into heavy music for the first time in 2025, this is a great way to do it. Even this album is a great way to do it. I
Yeah.
don't know what their shows are like anymore, but
I think it's got to be a lot dependent on who's playing with them and stuff like that. Because like 2024, 2025 Ghost Inside, it's like it's gym music. It's
it's
very
broke.
much it's brocore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah. Let's see. Last year they played with Gideon and Orthodox. I mean,
so they were
Orthodox.
going to that tour got canceled. So they
Okay.
played in Europe, and then when they were supposed to come back to the US and play on that tour, they canceled it and just said physically and mentally they couldn't go on the road for another 2 months or whatever the tour had lined up for. I was actually talking to the Orthodox guitar player. He rolled through with Anxious uh, playing bass for him, and so I was able to grab him. It was the day that the tour had got canceled, and he was like, "Dude, he's like, we had printed so much merch, like we were about to like we were leveraging our future on this tour, and the Ghost Inside canceled it. So I felt really bad for like Orthodox, who's an up and coming band. You know what
Right.
I mean? And I think that the crowd would really like Orthodox. I like that Orthodox was on that show. A newer, heavy, new metal hardcore type of band, straight edge band and stuff like that. I think that themselves bring out that younger hardcore crowd. Like I
Yeah.
said, I think Orthodox was my favorite show or favorite set that I saw last year at Kilby. It'd be interesting to see the group that
I
showed up
just,
for this.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it would be interesting to see the group because I'm not going to see Gideon. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't. I think Orthodox would have been the odd band out. That would have been one
Yeah.
of those shows where you're going to see a bunch of fights because kids are going to show up to mosh hard for Orthodox, and then
Probably.
you're going to have a bunch of Octane Rock people for the Ghost Inside, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Especially because like the year before that, they were with Under Oath and We Came as Romans and The Word Alive. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, this is probably the album that I've listened to the least outside maybe the newest one from The Ghost Inside.
okay.
I don't know why. This one felt like a replica of the album before. This felt like a replica of Get What You Give.
Feels like a worse version of Get What You Give. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it was any better. It premiered higher. It got to 63 on the Billboard. Again, it's produced by Epitaph.
That's because at this
You
point, the brocore guys are listening to it, right? So,
yeah, it gets pushed a little bit different, right? It also
mhm.
gets probably a little bit more leverage after their last one got up to 88. I'm sure Epitaph put a little bit more promotion into it and things along those lines. Again, if what I said about Get What You Give was it was, a good album, it was fine, you know what I mean? That's how I feel about Dear Youth.
Right.
Like I don't know if I would probably say Get What You Give is better just because it was the first of the
I think
two.
so too. Yeah, no, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I think that I think Dear Youth is there. In my opinion, I would rank it second to last.
Yeah. I'm
So,
I'm with you on that. And again, a lot of people really like that album. A lot of people have that album in very high regards and stuff like that. I think it's a time and a place.
mhm.
If your first album was Get What You Give and then Dear Youth comes out and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I get more of Get What You
Yeah,
Give." You're like, "Okay, this is awesome." You
right.
know what I mean? So I think that that's where that kind of generational gap starts happening, where you have the people who are listening to Fury and the Fallen Ones who get up to Get What You Give, and you're like, okay, I'm starting to, like you said, phase out of this. And
Mhm.
then you have people who start with Get What You Give who are like, Dear Youth is the next step up. That's what
Right.
maybe Returners was for me, is I felt like it was a step up. Dear Youth might be the step up for Get What You Give for a
Okay.
lot of people.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, that's just me just thinking out loud kind of thing, but that's the only way I can like make sense of it
Well, but
because in my opinion
you're
it's
not
it's
wrong
not.
because again, like this is the same thing that happened to Parkway. It's the same thing that's happening to like Fit for a King. Same thing that happened to Devil Wears Prada. You know, well, maybe less Devil Wears Prada because I
Yeah,
think Devil Wears Prada was big enough with Plagues and what's the one after it with
with
Roots?
roots
Yeah, whatever.
below and branches or branches below and roots above or something.
Something like that. Yeah, I think maybe Devil Wears Prada had more. You look at bands though, like Norma Jean went down this route. Uh, Oh Sleeper a little bit. I just it's this group of the you like group together of these kind of premier metalcore bands from 2010 and on have all kind of had the same trajectory.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, if you're like just discovering all these bands at this time, then like, dang, you got a ton of good music to listen to because all these bands did it,
Yeah.
you know, and
And
that's cool.
you've
So
got like 4 albums back of it too, you know what I mean?
right.
So like no, I completely agree with you. So
I would be interested. I think we said this with Parkway Drive. I would be interested to see what people think of their first two albums. If you're getting into Parkway Drive with or not, I keep saying Parkway Drive, the Ghost Inside with Dear Youth, I would be interested to know what you think of their earlier stuff. So if any of you
yeah,
are out there, let me know.
I would too.
Probably not
Yeah.
going to after all the crap we've been saying, but come on.
I don't think I don't know if they'll even go back to that far. They might get back to returners. You know what I mean? They're not going back to Fury and the Fallen Ones. At least
Okay.
I wouldn't think so, unless you have some sort of background more with early 2000s metalcore or hardcore or something like that, something to attach to. If like your introduction is current metalcore or the what we're calling kind of that brocore kind of thing, you're not going back to Fury and the Fallen Ones.
Yeah.
It's not the same,
Right.
So, anyways, yeah, I mean, like I said, I do think that there's catchy songs and stuff like that. Nothing caught my attention to where I'm like, I want to put Dear Youth on all the time.
Right.
But I know like Avalanche, that was their big song. Dear Youth was again a big song. Um, I think
Mercy.
Phoenix, Mercy, obviously. Was it? Yeah, Phoenix Flames, that kind of just chill one. This is another one where they put kind of like softer songs on it and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. So that's 2014.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was on the tour supporting the Dear Youth album drop because that was November of
It was
2014.
2015 is when they got in the car accident.
Right. But what I'm saying is, okay, I guess so. It was a full year later, 1 year after this, they're driving to Mesa, Arizona, and they get into a head on collision with a tractor trailer. It kills their bus driver, kills the driver of the other vehicle, and three of the members are life flighted for critical condition. So I know it was the vocalist Jonathan. Was it the guitar player? I think Zach, and then the drummer Andrew were all life flighted.
Hmm.
The drummer Andrew lost his right leg. Uh, Jonathan and Zach ended up recovering, fairly well from it, from all accounts, from what I could see and everything. But yeah, so Andrew loses his leg, and at that point, it's like, well, what's going to happen, right? So it was in March of 2016, Warp Tour announces that the Ghost Inside will be playing the 2017 Warp Tour. Like, pretty ambitious,
Yeah.
right? This is 4 months after the bus crash. Your drummer doesn't have a leg, and Warp Tour is like, yeah, Ghost Inside's coming back, and they're playing all of Warp Tour. Needless to say, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Yeah.
Didn't happen. Uh, they came out and they said that we're not going to be able to perform. Obviously, you know what I mean. I think the drummer was still figuring out like how he was going to make this happen.
Right. I know.
And if you haven't watched it, go and look up Andrew on YouTube and look at his setup now. It's really dope. His dad
It's
made like a pad for his right leg, and he uses the quad of his pad or the quad on that pad, and he's still freaking, it's his main kick pedal.
yeah.
Like, it's incredible. It's insane.
Mhm. It's cool. I
So,
just we saw it. What was it last year with Year of the Knife?
yeah.
Like
No, it's been a
was it
couple
two
years
years ago?
now. 2 years ago, maybe three, even two. I don't know.
No, it was last year. When did we start
No, it was
this?
it was two. It was 2 years ago. It was 2023. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I respect all these bands going out and doing this. I don't care what genre you're part of. Man, it's dangerous. It's a lot of work, and these guys are staying up late, driving crazy hours to get across town. I wish that we could figure out a better way. I don't like doing the festival thing, but like if that's what it has to come to keep people from dying driving, like people will understand. And it's a you feel terrible knowing that people pass, and like it's just the respect that you can have for this band to overcome that and to keep doing what they're doing now is it's unbelievable. They deserve all the success and everything that they can because not everyone comes back from that, you know.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
100%.
what a tragedy.
It was crazy. It was
Yeah.
crazy, and like the thing is, like I feel like it was a moment in the scene where, and obviously other people have passed. I mean, Bayside was in an act. It was Bayside, right?
Yeah, Seven
Coming
Angels, Seven Plagues. Like
Seven
a couple
Angels,
of those
Seven
guys
Plagues,
died, right?
Bayside.
Like,
Like there have been other bands, but it feels like this one was a little bit different. Maybe just because of how big the internet was and stuff like that, and how big the Ghost Inside had got at the time.
yeah,
That it was like, oh shoot, the Ghost Inside, like someone died, like
yeah.
their drummer lost a leg and stuff. It was very publicized.
Hmm.
It was a big thing that even people outside of the scene kind of knew about, you know? So
And I hadn't listened to the Ghost Inside for a long time. Um, but watching the Aftermath music video, like it's emotional, you
it's
know,
insane.
knowing like being involved in the scene and knowing bands and talking to people and you know the struggle and everything they fight through and then to go through an accident like that, to lose people you care about, and then watching the Aftermath music video, like it's a tearjerker, man. It's hard, you know, and it just music aside, like just absolute respect for the band. Absolute respect for the band to be able to do that. So
Yeah, 100%. So it took a couple years, right? But 2019, they announced their comeback show, and they play a sold out show in LA.
yeah,
And it, it, it was incredible. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, this was something that I sat down, I watched the whole way through on YouTube and stuff like that. It was an emotional moment. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those like triumphs over adversity kind of thing.
yeah.
And you just I would feel the same way. Like I felt the same way. You mentioned Year of the Knife. Maddie hopped up and did vocals at one of the festivals. I think it was an FYA or something like that. And it's just an emotional moment to like
Mhm.
watch these bands and these people just who've given so much to this to come out and step into it and return to what they love and their passion
Yeah,
that almost killed them.
right.
Like it's insane. And there was a moment there where even the Ghost Inside said, we might be done, you know? They all had this idea that they wanted to do one more album and they wanted to do one more show. That was the goal. And, lucky for us, they've continued to be able to perform and to continue to be able to make a living and doing what they're doing. Um, they're at the point in their careers where they don't have to tour 6 months out of the year, 7 months out of the year to be able to afford their lives and stuff like that. So, um, anyways, did you have a chance to like watch the concert or at least
Uh,
clips of the concert?
yeah, I didn't watch it right now, but I had seen it before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So after that, after the show, they then drop self-titled album, The Ghost Inside.
mhm.
And that opening song, he says like TGI from the ashes brought back to life. It's just like
It's
it's
cool.
another one of those things where it was just kind of goosebumps and stuff. I really like this album. I think that the self-titled is great. It was a great comeback album. It kind of it is very again reminiscent of Dear Youth, of uh, Get What You Give and stuff like that. But
I like it more than Dear Youth.
I
I
do
think they
too.
brought a little bit of old Ghost Inside back into it.
I
So
agree with that.
yeah,
I
but
100% agree with that.
it's not a bad album from them. Again, like it's not necessarily where I'm at right now, but just context with this album. how can you not like it? You know what I
Right.
mean? Everything we've said about the cheesiness of all the other things, like, man, like these guys embodied what like they preach or do what they preach, you know? Like so like I again musically it might not be my thing, but like I respect the crap out of this album. And it actually isn't bad, right? Like they could have come with some like really soppy, not very good album, but no, like they came and just punched you right in the face with it. And I respect that. Absolutely.
Right. No, it's got some really high points. Like I said, that opening song, 1333, that TGI, it was just goosebumps kind of
Yeah.
thing. It was just, it was so good just to
Mhm.
hear them come back, you
Yeah.
know? And then, like,
Aftermath is a great song.
oh,
The
Aftermath is
melodic parts in
fantastic.
Aftermath are like it's, and maybe I like it that much because of the music video too, just because it did create an emotional connection if you know the story. And so I like the song. I like Aftermath. I think it's a good song.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you are more melodic too. Like, you,
Yeah.
that's also the type of stuff you like. Pressure Point, it's another one of like the really over the top songs on the album.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I feel like that's the most pissed off version that like I've heard of them. And like, it almost feels like a lot of like pain. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like, that's what this album was. It was a very painful album for them to write and to think about and stuff like that. And they said, they're like, we don't want an entire album just on the tragedy. You know what I mean? So like there's other songs on here that are not necessarily about the crash, about everything that happened, but they're the ones that are where you're just like, man, you just like laid into this. It's just like it's awesome. So Aftermath, Pressure Point. I mean, what does he say? F this, F your sympathy or something like that.
Yeah.
Like or F this fake sympathy. You're everything I despise and disappear. Like it's just such a mean line, you know? And
Yeah.
y'all know how I feel about just like mean lines. I like that stuff. Like it's great. So
Yeah.
no, this was a good album in my opinion. Honestly, it's probably like my third favorite album from them. It's probably that high up
Okay.
in all honesty. Um I really like it. If I'm going to listen to their like more metalcore, current metalcore sound, this is the album I'm putting on.
That's true statement. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I agree.
and then we go 3, 4 more years, and we get Searching for Solace.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Oh man, I just like I know why bands are doing this. And honestly, like if you go listen to the drummer's like side project and stuff, it's like a more like prog rock experimental type of sound and stuff. And it feels like it goes more in line with this. Like he's not playing like a hardcore side band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's playing metal.
Yeah.
And this is a metal album.
It's bad. Who does the cleans? Is it Jonathan? Is it the lead vocalist? Or is it
It
someone else?
might be. I honestly don't know. That's one thing I don't know about this.
I look, I have no problem with bands that sing. I have no problem with this specific genre of music. I think I've said before, I'm a big fan of like old Silent Planet, old Phineas. Uh, the Color Morale is one of my favorite bands. It's just this isn't it. You know, this felt way too. It just felt way too what everyone else is doing. They lost everything that made them the Ghost Inside, in my opinion.
It got too tuned down
Yeah,
to it's this like industrial sounding crunch sounding. They just like it's just such a drop tuned electronic sounding breakdown kind of thing. Yeah, I just listen. We're the outliers here. this is what's popular. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? People love this kind of stuff. There are moments on this album that are a little bit better than some of the other current metalcore bands. Even in the song Death Grip, they have that upbeat part that's like a minute and a half into it or something. It kind of picks up, it gets more melodic, it gets more kind of jumpy, bouncy stuff like that. It feels cool, but it's mixed into a lot of that
It's a
low.
good, I really do not like Death Grip.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting. And then, like, the other song that's really popular on here, Earn It, like, there's so many bands that could just do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that that's what bothers me about a lot of this stuff is like even though a lot of like hardcore or like a lot of like what we listen to in terms of like kind of that death influenced hardcore, like the Shattered Realms type of things and stuff like that. A lot of it sounds the same, but there's ways to kind of like differentiate bands at times. And maybe it's just because of how much I listen to them or whatever. I don't know if Fit for a King was literally to play a cover of Earn It. I don't know if I could have told you if this was Fit for a King or The Ghost
Yeah.
Inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, we talked about this with He's Legend. He's Legend went through these sound changes. They got sludgy. They got some of this, a little bit of industrial type stuff. Still felt like He's Legend. Still felt like it was the same people that did the rest of the albums. You know what I mean? Every Time I Die, that's another band that these guys want us to do, and we're going to end up doing. But like their sound changes, they still feel like Every Time I Die. This
Yeah,
does not feel like The Ghost Inside. This feels like Epitaph went to him and said, "Here's the, here's the foundation. Here's the
blueprint for
blueprint.
success.
Here's the blueprint for the music that we want you to play. Make this album for us." And you're right. Fit for King could have done the same thing. I might even be more okay with Fit for a King doing this because they didn't lean more on the hardcore side in their older albums. They've always been pretty metalcore-y, deathcore-y type stuff where their progressions feels more natural to me than this does.
Yeah, and I think that we kind of have to throw out Fury and the Fallen Ones. Once it hits 2000, I think it's 14. The only remaining original member is Vigil, the
Okay.
vocalist.
Yeah.
So once you hit 2014, the main songwriter at that time starts to become Andrew, the drummer, is my understanding. And like again, we've already talked about For the Fallen Dreams. If For the Fallen Dreams is any indication, he's very in line with what's currently happening. This is a very what's currently happening album,
Yeah.
you know? And so like is it better than some of what's currently happening? Probably. You know what I mean? Like they're probably just better
Yeah.
musicians. You know
I,
what I mean?
I would listen to this over some of the other bands that are out there doing that. You know?
Exactly. Like again,
But I
forever.
only think that because I have history with them.
Fair.
Yeah.
Right. But this goes back to our very first thing that we were talking about. When it comes to nostalgia, that's what really that's what keeps these bands alive for me. And so, like you said, like it's because of your history with them that you're probably listening to this. Yeah, I'm probably listening and just searching for solace over some of the other current metalcore albums.
Yeah.
Like if I'm listening to this, like if for some
Sure.
reason I'm listening to Sirius XM Octane Radio and the Searching for Solace Death Grip song comes on, like sure, I'll keep it on. Versus if I heard like a band I've never heard of who sounds like this, I'm probably gonna flip the station, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fair.
So
It's a
in
good band. I'm glad we did them. I'm glad we talked about their discography. Um, I can see why they're popular now. I can see why people have gotten into them. I can see why people like their later albums. Me personally, just because of how much I revere Fury and the Fallen Ones, I just feel like I've outgrown it, moved on from it. You know, it was
It's
fun to
fair.
like revisit the history. It was fun to think about the cool shows and how fun they were live. I don't know outside of that timing I saw them with Confide and maybe a Warp Tour that I ever saw them again. Did we?
I know I saw him at Warp Tour. I don't know how many times at Warp Tour, maybe a couple. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I feel like there was one other time. I feel like we saw him twice and then a Warp
maybe.
Tour, but I don't
I
know.
don't know. It feels to me as like as important of an album as Fury and the Fallen Warriors or Fury and the Fallen Ones was. They're kind of a blip in my music history.
And I think that that's a lot due to the timing, right? Like I said, we found these guys at the end of high school and we graduated high school and started doing a bunch of other stuff. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? You move out of the country for a couple years. I'm up at college. Like stuff's going on. You know what
yeah,
I mean? It was less about music at that point. Like music was all encompassing for us through high school.
yeah. Because
And
we had nothing
then
to do.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we
Yeah,
weren't out partying, we weren't doing any of that kind of stuff. We were literally going to concerts or sitting in my backyard having fires or playing video games, listening to music.
yeah,
Like it's all we did.
hmm,
That changed after high school. And
yeah,
I think that maybe that was part of what happened. Had the Ghost Inside been 2005, 2006 with that album, I think that they are a much, much bigger band
yeah. Probably.
for you personally.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
Just knowing how much that one album did influence
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
short period. So,
No, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So
But I don't know. I love the Ghost Inside. Like I said, I would Returners, it's up there, man. I love that album. I sing to that album all the time. I really enjoy it. Fury and the Fallen Ones will be like goated album for me. I love that album too. Again,
yeah,
I've got so many goated albums, but that one's up there. Uh, and then like after that, like I have no problem listening to them. I'm not necessarily going out of my way to like see them kind of thing, but I'd probably go catch them again. I was actually planning on catching that Orthodox, like when they were going to come through with Orthodox.
yeah.
I think they were coming to Salt Lake. So I was going to go see it. I thought it would have been fun.
I'm not going to see them. It's all right, unless they do a Fury and Fallen One reunion tour, and then I'll see them.
Yeah, and I
But
just,
was it 3 more years, and then it'll be like a 20 year? So
20 year. I don't think you're getting it.
no,
I no, I don't think so. I don't think
Stranger
it's
Things. Yeah.
happening.
So
I mean, you're going to get a 15-year probably of Get What You Give before you get
yeah,
a 20-year of Fury and the Fallen one.
I'm not doing it. So
It's 15-year of Returner this year. Come on, Ghost Inside.
I guess I would. It would depend on who they're playing with, but
I'd go see that one.
yeah.
That'd be high up there for me. So cool. Well,
Well,
we'll have to see what we do next. Prediction on Super Bowl. This is
I'm not
coming out
watching.
after it, but
I'm not watching it. I don't like either of the teams. Kansas City's going to win because it's rigged. Freaking what the meathead guy that's dating Taylor Swift, Travis Kelsey, he's going to propose to Taylor after, and it's the NBA is going to get the script that they wrote. So,
so you are going to watch it because your wife has to find out
my
if T
wife will
Swift
watch
is
it.
getting married.
Yeah, my wife's going to watch the football game. I'm not going to. So,
Sounds about right.
yeah. So, what do you think? Who do you think's winning?
I kind of hope it's I'm not a Kansas City hater. Like I know a lot of people are like it's overplayed at this point, but I would love to see Philly win just because um their running back Saquon.
Mm,
Like I'm super stoked for him after
yeah.
being on the Giants for all
Screwed
those
over the Chiefs.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind Jalen Hurts either. Look, I'm in
Yeah.
Dallas, so like I got to keep my voice down when I'm saying that stuff
Yeah, you're going
because
to get shot, bro.
So it'll be interesting. We got some cool stuff coming up too. So check in. Appreciate everyone that listens. So
Yeah, excited. So dope. Well,
cool. Thanks, man.
peace.
Bye bye.